Chapter 3. The occurrences of that first night, more than anything else, decided our direction on the following day, for, realizing that we were too ill-informed to cope with any understanding with what was taking place, Laird set the dictaphone for that second night, and we started out for Wausau and Professor Partier, planning to return on the following day. With forethought, Laird carried with him our copy of the notes Gardner had left, skeletal as they were. Professor Partier, at first reluctant to see us, admitted us finally to his study in the heart of the Wisconsin city, and cleared books and papers from 2 chairs so that we could sit down. Though he had the appearance of an old man, wore a long white beard, and a fringe of white hair straggled from under his black skull-cap, he was as agile as a young man. He was thin, his fingers were bony, his face gaunt, with deep black eyes, and his features were set in an expression that was one of profound cynicism, disdainful, almost contemptuous, and he made no effort to make us comfortable beyond providing places for us to sit. He recognized Laird as Professor Gardner's secretary, said brusquely that he was a busy man, preparing what would doubtless be his last book for his publishers, and he would be obliged to us if we would state the object of our visit as concisely as possible. "What do you know of Cthulhu?" asked Laird bluntly. The professor's reaction was astonishing. From an old man whose entire attitude had been one of superiority and aloof disdain, he became instantly wary and alert. With exaggerated care, he put down the pencil he had been holding. His eyes never once left Laird's face, and he leaned forward a little over his desk. "So," he said, "you come to me." He laughed then, a laugh which was like the cackling of some centenarian. "You come to me to ask about Cthulhu. Why?" Laird explained curtly that he was bent upon discovering what had happened to Professor Gardner. He told as much as he thought necessary, while the old man closed his eyes, picked up his pencil once more, and, tapping gently with it, listened with marked care, prompting Laird from time to time. When he had finished, Professor Partier opened his eyes slowly and looked from one to the other of us with an expression that was not unlike one of pity mixed with pain. "So he mentioned me, did he? But I had no contact with him other than one telephone call." He pursed his lips. "He had more reference to an earlier controversy than to his discoveries at Rixlake. I would like now to give you a little advice." "That's what we came for." "Go away from that place and forget all about it." Laird shook his head in determination. Partier estimated him, his dark eyes challenging his decision. But Laird did not falter. He had embarked upon this venture, and he meant to see it through. "These are not forces with which common men have been accustomed to deal," said the old man then. "We are frankly not equipped to do so." He began then, without other preamble, to talk of matters so far removed from the mundane as to be almost beyond conception. Indeed, it was some time before I began to comprehend what he was hinting at, for his concept was so broad and breathtaking that it was difficult for anyone accustomed to so prosaic an existence as mine to grasp. Perhaps it was because Partier began obliquely by suggesting that it was not Cthulhu or his minions who haunted Rixlake, but clearly another. The existence of the slab and what was carved upon it clearly indicated the nature of the being who dwelled there from time to time. Professor Gardner had in final analysis got on to the right path, despite thinking that Partier did not believe it. Who was the blind, faceless one but Nyarlathotep? Certainly not Shub-Niggurath, the black goat of 1,000 young. Here Laird interrupted him to press for something more understandable, and then at last, realizing that we knew nothing, the professor went on, still in that vaguely irritable oblique manner, to expound a mythology of pre-human life not only on the earth, but on the stars of all the universe.
"We know nothing," he repeated from time to time. "We know nothing at all. But there are certain signs, certain shunned places. Rick's Lake is one of them."
He spoke of beings whose very names were awesome, of the elder gods who live on Betelgeuse, remote in time and space, who had cast out into space the great Old Ones, led by Yog-Sothoth and Yog-Sothoth, and numbering among them the primal spawn of the amphibious Cthulhu, the bat-like followers of Hastur the Unspeakable, of Thoigor, Jar, and Ithaquah, who walked on winds and interstellar space, the earth beings Nyarlathotep and Shub-Niggurath, the evil beings who sought always to triumph once more over the elder gods, who had shut them out or imprisoned them, as Cthulhu long ago slept in the ocean realm of R'lyeh, as Hastur was imprisoned upon a black star near Aldebaran in the Hyades. Long before human beings walked the earth, the conflict between the elder gods and the great Old Ones had taken place, and from time to time the Old Ones had made a resurgence toward power, sometimes to be stopped by direct interference by the elder gods, but more often by the agency of human or non-human beings, serving to bring about a conflict among the beings of the elements. For, as Gardner's notes had indicated, the evil Old Ones were elemental forces, and every time there had been a resurgence, the mark of it had been left deep upon man's memory, though every attempt was made to eliminate the evidence and quiet survivors.
"What happened at Innsmouth, Massachusetts, for instance?"
he asked tensely.
"What took place at Dunwich, in the wilds of Vermont, at the old Tuttle house on the Aylesbury Pike? What of the mysterious cult of Cthulhu and the utterly strange voyage of exploration to the mountains of madness? What beings dwelt on the hidden and shunned Plateau of Leng? And what of Kadath in the Cold Wast? Lovecraft knew. Gardner and many another have sought to discover those secrets, to link the incredible happenings which have taken place here and there on the face of the planet, but it is not desired by the Old Ones that mere men shall know too much. Be warned."
He took up Gardner's notes without giving either of us a chance to say anything, and studied them, putting on a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles, which made him look more ancient than ever, and going on talking, more to himself than to us, saying that it was held that the Old Ones had achieved a higher degree of development in some aspects of science than was hitherto believed possible, but of that, of course, nothing was known. The way in which he consistently emphasized this indicated very clearly that only a fool or an idiot would disbelieve, proof or no proof. But in the next sentence he admitted that there was certain proof, the revolting and bestial plaque bearing a representation of a hellish monstrosity walking on the winds above the earth, found in the hand of Josiah Alwyn when his body was discovered on a small Pacific island months after his incredible disappearance from his home in Wisconsin, the drawings made by Professor Gardner, and, even more than anything else, the curious slab of carven stone in the forest at Rick's Lake.
"Cthulhu,"
he murmured then wonderingly.
"I've not read the footnote to which he makes reference, and there's nothing in Lovecraft."
He shook his head.
"No, I don't know."
He looked up.
"Can you frighten something out of the half-breed?"
"We've thought of that," admitted Laird.
"Well now, I'd advise a try. It seems evident that he knows something. It may be nothing but an exaggeration to which his more or less primitive mind has lent itself, but on the other hand, Who can say?
More than this, Professor Parterre could not or would not tell us. Moreover, Laird was reluctant to ask, for there was obviously a damnably disturbing connection between what he had revealed, however incredible it might be, and what Professor Gardiner had written. Our visit, however, despite its inconclusiveness, or perhaps because of it, had a curious effect on us. The very indefiniteness of the professor's summary and comments, coupled with such fragmentary and disjointed evidence which had come to us independently of Parterre, sobered us and increased Laird's determination to get to the bottom of the mystery surrounding Gardiner's disappearance, a mystery which had now become enlarged to encompass a greater mystery of Rick's Lake and the forest around it. On the following day, we returned to Pashapaho, and, as luck would have it, we passed old Peter on the road leading from town. Laird slowed down, backed up, and leaned out to meet the old fellow's speculative gaze.
Lift?
Reckon so.
Old Peter got in and sat on the edge of the seat until Laird unceremoniously produced a flask and offered it to him. Then his eyes lit up. He took it eagerly and drank deeply, while Laird made small talk about life in the North Woods and encouraged the half-breed to talk about the mineral deposits he thought he could find in the vicinity of Rick's Lake. In this way some distance was covered, and during this time the half-breed retained the flask, handing it back at last when it was almost empty. He was not intoxicated in the strictest sense of the word, but he was uninhibited, and he made no protest when we took the lake road without stopping to let him out, though when he saw the lodge and knew where he was, he said thickly that he was off his route, and he had to be getting back before dark. He would have started back immediately, but Laird persuaded him to come in with the promise that he would mix him a drink. He did. He mixed him as stiff a drink as he could, and Peter downed it. Not until he had begun to feel its effects did Laird turn to the subject of what Peter knew about the mystery of the Rick's Lake country, and instantly then the half-breed became closed-mouthed, mumbling that he would say nothing, he had seen nothing, it was all a mistake, his eyes shifting from one to the other of us. But Laird persisted. He had seen the slab of carven stone, hadn't he? Yes, reluctantly. Would he take us there? Peter shook his head violently. Not now. It was nearly dark. It might be dark before they could return. But Laird was adamant, and finally the half-breed, convinced by Laird's insistence that they could return to the lodge and even to Pashapaho, if Peter liked, before darkness fell, consented to lead us to the slab. Then, despite his unsteadiness, he set off swiftly into the woods, along a lane that could hardly be called a trail, so faint it was, and loped along steadily for almost a mile before he drew up short, and, standing behind a tree, as if he were afraid of being seen, pointed shakily to a little open spot surrounded by high trees at enough of a distance that ample sky was visible overhead.
There! That's it!
The slab was only partly visible, for moss had grown over much of it. Laird, however, was at the moment only secondarily interested in it. It was manifest that the half-breed stood in mortal terror of the spot and wished only to escape.
How would you like to spend the night here, Peter?
Asked Laird. The half-breed shot a frightened glance at him.
Me? God, no!
Suddenly Laird's voice steeled.
Unless you tell us what it was you saw here, that's what you're going to do.
The half-breed was not so much the worse for liquor that he could not foresee events, the possibility that Laird and I might overcome him and tie him to a tree at the edge of this open space. Plainly, he considered a bolt for it, but he knew that in his condition he could not outrun us.
Don't make me tell, he said. It ain't supposed to be told. I ain't never told no one, not even the professor. We want to know, Peter, said Laird with no less menace. The half-breed began to shake.
He turned and looked at the slab as if he thought at any moment an inimical being might rise from it and advance upon him with lethal intent.
I can't,
he muttered, and then, forcing his bloodshot eyes to meet Laird's once more, he said in a low voice,
I don't know what it was. God, it was awful. It was a thing. Didn't have no face. Hollered there till I thought my eardrums would bust. And them things that was with it, God!
He shuddered and backed away from the tree toward us.
Honest to God, I seen it there one night. It just come, seems like out of the air, and there it was a-singin' and a-wailin', and them things playin' that damn music. I guess I was crazy for a while afore I got away.
His voice broke. His vivid memory recreated what he had seen. He turned, shouting harshly,
Let's get out of here!
And ran back the way we had come, weaving among the trees. Laird and I ran after him, catching up easily, Laird reassuring him that we would take him out of the woods in the car, and he would be well away from the forest's edge before darkness overtook him. He was as convinced as I that there was nothing imagined about the half-breed's account, that he had indeed told us all he knew, and he was silent all the way back from the highway to which we took old Peter, pressing $5 upon him so that he could forget what he had seen in liquor if he were so inclined.
What do you think?
Asked Laird when we reached the lodge once more. I shook my head.
That wailing, night before last, said Laird, the sounds Professor Gardiner heard, and now this. It ties up, damnably, horribly.
He turned on me with intense and fixed urgency.
Jack, are you game to visit that slab tonight?
Certainly.
We'll do it.
It was not until we were inside the lodge that we thought of the dictaphone, and then Laird prepared at once to play whatever had been recorded back to us. Here, at least, he reflected, was nothing dependent in any way upon anyone's imagination. Here was the product of the machine, pure and simple, and everyone of intelligence knew full well that machines were far more dependable than men, having neither nerves nor imagination, knowing neither fear nor hope. I think that at most we counted upon hearing a repetition of the sounds of the previous night. Not in our wildest dreams did we look forward to what we did actually hear, for the record mounted from the prosaic to the incredible, from the incredible to the horrible, and at last to a cataclysmic revelation that left us completely cut away from every credo of normal existence. It began with the occasional singing of loons and owls, followed by a period of silence. Then there was once more that familiar rushing sound, as of wind in the trees, and this was followed by the curious cacophonous piping of flutes. Then there was recorded a series of sounds, which I put down here exactly as we heard them in that unforgettable evening hour. Ignaya, Ignaya,
Ya, 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 niga, niga, ya, ya, ya.
In a voice that was neither human nor bestial, but yet of both. An increased tempo in the music, becoming more wild and demoniac. Mighty messenger, Nyarlathotep, from the world of 7 suns to his earthplace, the wood of Nagai, whither may come him who is not to be named. There shall be abundance of those from the black goat of the woods, the goat with the 1,000 young. In a voice that was curiously human. A succession of odd sounds, as if audience response, a buzzing and humming as of telegraph wires.
Ya, Shub-Niggurath, Ignaya, ya, ha, ha, ha.
In the original voice, neither human nor beast, yet both. Ithaquah shall serve thee, father of the 1,000,000 favored ones, and Zar shall be summoned from Arcturus by the command of Umar-at-Tawil, guardian of the gate. Ye shall unite in praise of Yog-Sothoth, of great Cthulhu, of Tsathoggua. The human voice again.
go forth in his form, or in whatever form chosen in the guise of man, and destroy that which may lead them to us.
The half-bestial, half-human voice once more. An interlude of furious piping, accompanied once again by a sound as of the flapping of great wings.
Ignaya, Idink, Hihayengurtra, Ya, Ya, Ya,
like a chorus. These sounds had been spaced in such a way that it seemed as if the beings giving rise to them were moving about within or around the lodge, and the last choral chanting faded away as if the creatures were departing. Indeed, there followed such an interval of silence that Laird had actually moved to shut off the machine when once again a voice came from it. But the voice that now emanated from the dictaphone was one which, simply because of its nature, brought to a climax all the horror so cumulative in what had gone before it, for whatever had been inferred by the half-bestial bellowings and chants, the horribly suggestive conversation in accented English, that which now came from the dictaphone was unutterably terrible. "Dorgan! Laird Dorgan! Can you hear me?" A hoarse, urgent whisper calling out to my companion, who sat white-faced now, staring at the machine above which his hand was still poised. Our eyes met. It was not the appeal, it was not everything that had gone before, it was the identity of that voice, for it was the voice of Professor Upton Gardner. But we had no time to ponder this, for the dictaphone went mechanically on. "Listen to me. Leave this place. Forget. But before you go, summon Cthulhu. For centuries, this has been the place where evil beings from outermost cosmos have touched upon Earth. I know. I am theirs. They have taken me, as they took Piragard and many others. All who came unwarily within their wood, and whom they did not at once destroy. It is his wood, the wood of Nagai, the terrestrial abode of the blind, faceless one, the howler in the night, the dweller in darkness, Nyarlathotep, who fears only Cthulhu. I have been with him in the star spaces. I have been on the shunned Plateau of Leng, to Kadath, in the Cold Wast beyond the gates of the Silver Key, even to Kithamil near Arcturus and Minar, to Nakai and the Lake of Hali, to Canaion and fabled Carcosa, to Yadith and Yhonthli near Innsmouth, to Yoth and Yugoth, and from far off I have looked upon Zothik from the eye of Algol. When Fomalhaut has topped the trees, call forth to Cthulhu in these words, thrice repeated. Funglui, Mrglanoff, Cthulhu, Fomalhaut Nagagaha, Nafothungin, Ya Cthulhu. When he has come, go swiftly, lest you too be destroyed. For it is fitting that this accursed spot be blasted, so that Nyarlathotep comes no more out of interstellar space. Do you hear me, Dorgan? Do you hear me? Dorgan! Laird Dorgan! There was a sudden sound of sharp protest, followed by a scuffling and tearing noise, as if Gardner had been forcibly removed, and then silence, utter and complete. For a few minutes longer Laird let the record run, but there was nothing more, and finally he started it over, saying tensely,
"I think we'd better copy that as best we can. You take every other speech, and let's both copy that formula from Gardner."
Was it?
"I'd know his voice anywhere,"
he said shortly. "He's alive, then?" He looked at me, his eyes narrowed.
"We don't know that."
"But his voice?" He shook his head, but the sounds were coming forth once more, and both of us had to bend to the task of copying, which was easier than it promised to be, for the spaces between speeches were great enough to enable us to copy without undue haste. The language of the chants and the words to Cthulhu, enunciated by Gardner's voice, offered extreme difficulty, but by means of repeated playings we managed to put down the approximate equivalent of the sounds. When finally we had finished, Laird shut the dictaphone off and looked at me with quizzical and troubled eyes, grave with concern and uncertainty. I said nothing, what we had just heard, added to everything that had gone before, left us no alternative. There was room for doubt about legends, beliefs, and the like, but the infallible record of the dictaphone was conclusive, even if it did no more than verify half-heard credos, for it was true, there was still nothing definite. It was as if the whole were so completely beyond the comprehension of man that only in the oblique suggestion of its individual parts could something like understanding be achieved, as if the entirety were too unspeakably soul-searing for the mind of man to withstand.
Fomalhaut rises almost at sunset, a little before, I think,
mused Laird. Clearly, like myself, he had accepted what we heard without challenge, other than the mystery surrounding its meaning.
It should be above the trees, presumably 20 to 30 degrees above the horizon, because it doesn't pass near enough to the zenith in this latitude to appear above these pines, at approximately an hour after darkness falls, say 9:30 or so.
You aren't thinking of trying it tonight? I asked. After all, what does it mean? Who or what is Cthulhu?
I don't know any more than you, and I'm not trying it tonight. You've forgotten the slab. Are you still game to go out there after this?
I nodded. I did not trust myself to speak, but I was not consumed by any eagerness whatever to dare the darkness that lingered like a living entity within the forest surrounding Rick's Lake. Laird looked at his watch and then at me, his eyes burning now with a kind of feverish determination, as if he were forcing himself to take this final step to face the unknown being whose manifestations had made the woods its own. If he expected me to hesitate, he was disappointed. However beset by fear I might be, I would not show it. I got up and went out of the lodge at his side.